I was 7 years old when it started. After my tennis lessons, the coach would invite me into his office to play with him. And this was when the abuse happened. I didn't understand at all what was happening. I didn't like it, but part of me was proud to be the chosen one. It made me feel special. I was very young, and I honestly can't tell you now exactly what did happen. But the sensation of gagging is a feeling which has never left me. Afterwards, he used to give me presents, little badges, tennis balls, small things. I kept them for years. I tried telling my parents that I didn't like him. As a child, I didn't have the language to say what was actually happening. Instead, they told me not to be rude, that he was a nice and respected man, and he gave me presents. If all parents had an awareness of signs of abuse, then much of what followed might never have happened. When I was 13, I told my friends at boarding school that I had been kissed and touched by an older man. They were horrified and said it wasn't normal. I felt guilty and that I had done something wrong, so I shut up and hid it all in the back of my head. Then I stopped eating for a while. It made me feel in control at a time when either I wasn't believed or made to feel I wasn't normal. Due to the trauma experienced, my behaviour became erratic and irrational. Maybe it gave me the power I hadn't had as a child. No one around me, coaches, teachers, family, friends, or their parents, picked up on these behaviours and questioned what prompted them. So I struggled on, finding ways to cope in a world I was unable to cope in. When I was 18, I went to live in France. I met and married someone 11 years older than me. He was abusive towards me, and for a while I thought this was normal. Then, aged 32, a mother of 4, I had a trigger. My past came flooding out. It hit me hard and I needed to do something. I got in touch with my childhood tennis club, who told me my old coach, the abuser, had died, had been much respected all his life, and would never have done those things I said. I talked to my parents again, who still didn't believe me. My mum said, "How can you say such terrible things about someone who is dead and can't even defend himself?" I went to Paris one weekend and threw his presents into the Seine. I thought this would make me feel better. In fact, later I regretted this, as they were my only proof of what had happened. I was still being dismissed by the club and my parents, and made to feel that it was all my fault. I went back to see the club. It had changed, but I remembered clearly where his office had been. It seemed there was nothing more I could do now. By chance, I saw an old neighbour who said that her daughter, who played tennis too, had always been wary of his wandering hands. Finally, I had found the first person who believed me. Past traumas led me to leave my husband and raise 4 small children by myself. I was miserable and life felt very difficult. I started seeing a psychiatrist and spent 5 weeks in a psychiatric hospital trying to come to terms with this and other problems that it had created. I started self-harming. The pain made me feel better. I tried to kill myself by taking all my pills. I ended up in hospital having my stomach pumped. Years later, I came across media articles about other children who had been abused by him, with contact details for the police in case of any other information. After a sleepless night, I called the number. Because I live in France, I couldn't go in to give a statement, and in the end, they said that because he was dead, they couldn't do much about it. The inability of the police to react compounded past traumas. I was devastated. Nobody explained why. I now knew that I hadn't been the only one. Maybe, just maybe, it hadn't been all my fault. I went public with the story. My parents were furious when they found out. Further contact with the national governing body led to a new police investigation. At least 10 other people had reported being abused by him, and more who didn't want to talk about it. Yet now, bizarrely, they couldn't find any records for this man. It was as if he had never existed. The club had taken measures to protect themselves and their reputation, and had wiped any evidence of him, taken down his photos, and removed his name from awards. I contacted a lawyer. I needed acknowledgement from the club, and I wanted a photo of him for therapy reasons, and an apology to support my healing process. My lawyer contacted my parents, who, after all these years, finally started to believe me. It has been a very tough process. Finally, I got acknowledgement from the club, a photo and a letter of apology, which I gave to the police so it could be passed on to other victims. The financial recompense has supported me with the clinical therapy I need to move forward and start the process towards recovery. I still need therapy, suffer from depression and an eating disorder. For me, it was tennis, but this can happen in any sport. What happened to me will never go away. Immediate understanding, acknowledgement, and professional curiosity by those around me and the club could have made a huge difference on mine and my children's lives. Being abused is terrible, but not being believed is incredibly destructive and hurtful.